Oh my god! Is US gonna go default? Oh my god! Oh my god, the end of the world is coming! No! Hey, what is up, dudes and dudettes? This is Dual Diligence here, and today we're gonna talk about this very hot issue called US default on its debts. And before getting into how would US government even possibly is gonna default on their debt, the likelihood of it they default into the debt, we need to go back a little bit and talk about this magic number called September 30th, 930. Okay, if we search September 30th, you will see September 30th is the 273rd day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, blah, 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 blah. But none of that is important. The reason why September 30th is the most important day in the United States physical year is because this is the date that marks the ending of a physical year as the US government is operating, which means before, usually, traditionally speaking, before September 30th, the US government needs to make up a new budget plan, AIE or AI, or for example, they need to figure out whether they're going to increase their debt ceiling or not. The infrastructure bill usually is in the progress of passing that because that's one of the biggest spending budget that's going to come up in the next year, right? What else has to be done before September 30th? A lot of interest payment has to be done by the end of September 30th. Consider the US government is trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. So, what really makes the media go crazy today? It has to go back to this letter, okay? So today, not the chairman, but the Secretary of the Treasury sent House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Madam, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi, hey, they're so basically the summary of this entire document now you really need to pay attention to is this number, October 18th, 2021. So according to Madam Yellen, or Jelen, sorry for butchering your name, Madam Secretary, it turns out that the US Treasury is going to run out of money by the time of October 18th, 2021. Wow, that was huge, right? The US government, the US Treasury, one of the biggest superpowers in the world that, in the traditional finance courses, it's said in a company, I'm saying US as a company, a government, a country that never would default on their debt, even, when the British government is literally pressuring the US in the early 1700s or in the 1800s or even during the Great Depression, US never defaulted on their debt. But guess what? They never were in the situation that the Treasury Department actually ran out of money to spend. Wow, that is pretty urgent, isn't it? So, in order to fix this problem, or technically the congressional hearing was already in place, and today or yesterday the media was just picking up on the whole default fiesta. So basically the logic is, if the Congress decided not to increase the debt ceiling, that means the US can default on its debt. And there's going to be catastrophic event happening. Basically, when the US default on its debt, the entire world's going to end, guys. I'm actually not being sarcastic here. That's actually what's going to happen, because US dollars is one of the biggest and probably the only internationally renowned and utilized and sort of known and recognized global currency. Your petrol, right? The oil is basically pegged to the dollar. So the oil uses dollar as a paying or counting measure, right? And a lot of the countries that actually holds U.S. Treasury, well, technically speaking, the U.S. debt were held 78% by the U.S. public, but another 1/3 ish of those are held by the foreign government. So if U.S. default, who suffered the most is gonna be the little people like us, right? Who are broke, who are in the U.S., who are heavily invested in the U.S. in the economy and investment and government. But another thing you guys have to think about is a lot of banks even in the outside of the US, holds US dollar as a safety deposit, as a safety currency per se. So whenever you have a global economy crisis like 2008, you will actually see the US dollar value shoots up because everybody thinks that US dollar is one of the safest currency you can have in the world because it never defaulted. So now this is the problem here is, or you guys gonna ask this question, why would debt ceiling, when the Congress doesn't increase the debt ceiling automatically means that, US is gonna default on its debt? Well, here's the logic behind it. If the US decided to not increase the debt ceiling, that means we don't have congressional approval to spend a lot of money on the US economy. And what is very interesting from today's hearing is we learned that apparently last year extending into this year, the US government already extended its budget. That means whatever is going to get passed in this debt ceiling fiesta is already account payable to a lot of service already in progress or in render. So in layman's term is basically the US government is swiping its little credit card and it sort of overspent a little bit. A little bit, what I mean by a little bit is a couple of $1 trillion here and there, including the stimulus package, couple of, hundreds of billions of dollars out there, and, the quantitative easing. Guys, do you really think tapering is that easy of a problem for the US government to really solve or really trying to do? One of the major reasons they're trying to taper is because the government is simply spending too much money trying to help its citizen, and a lot of people are not actively looking for a job. That's why the US labor participation rate is actually at an all-time low, even though the unemployment rate is, sort of like recovering. And one of the things you guys have to understand about, the measures of unemployment and, the measures of labor participation is unemployment only count the labor force that were actively participating in the market, which means if you haven't been actively seeking for a job for over 3 months or 6 months, I don't remember the actual logistic of it, you are gonna be out of the statistic of unemployment rate. So let's just say number 2 stopped looking for a job for half a year. And before he was a part of the, unemployment or like 6% or 8% or whatever the unemployment rate is in the United States right now. Let's actually look it up. The unemployment rate of United States. The August census, let's see, the unemployment rate is, 5.2%. So let's just say number 2 used to be unemployed, right? And he eventually decided to, after 6 months, like, oh my God, I can just take the government benefit and I will still softly make around like $7.8 per hour, like even $8 per hour. And if you go work, you have to spend the time working. I cannot smoke weed all day at my apartment. I cannot swipe Tinder all day and, fuck some hot bitch at the end of the night. And, I don't really need to pay rent because I can just stay at my parents' house. All those kind of stuff, right? So eventually number 2 decided, hey, I'm not going to find a job anymore after 6 months of seeking. That means he used to be the 5.2% people unemployment rate, right? But then when he decided to actively not participate in the labor market, that means he becomes the people that decided not to participate in the economy. That means the true unemployment is way higher than 5.2%. And what the Fed is not addressing is, hey guys, a lot of people are actually struggling to find a job. If even in the Fed here in the congressional hearing, Jay Money is saying, oh my God, everything is recovering so fine, blah blah blah. But people even like me cannot find a job, guys. I cannot even find a job. I almost done with my master's. I am a A student. I do have some side gigs, and I'm pretty smart, and I basically know how to do a lot of things in my field. And I can say that professionally speaking, in terms of trying to chase returns or in terms of trying to talk about finance in the field of finance, I am like the top 2% of those people who are really good at it. All right. So hey, even I cannot find a job. Then if you look at like a lot of other people who haven't been been through higher education, they might only have a high school diploma. It's even harder for them, guys. And none of the congressional hearings are actually talking about the actual rate of labor participation. Is it 80% of the labor market? Is it 70% of the labor market? Or are we at 50% of labor participation? Let's actually search it up. Labor participation rate. So 61%? Wow, that's actually pretty bad, guys. So that means there's only somewhere around 61% of the people are actively looking for a job. And you really, and J Money is talking about maximum employment. It's just not going to happen. A lot of people are hanging on the thread right now. The US government is very cash scarce right now. But anyways, in terms of the US default, what really would happen when US default instead is, hey, the global economy is just going to go to shitties, guys. The shitholes and the shitties. When US default, that means UK's bond market is gonna default. The entire global economy is gonna default. There's like, what are you gonna use to count your oil measures? Like if I'm gonna buy a barrel of oil, I'm gonna use US dollars. Still gonna use US dollars? Probably not. It's gonna hurt the image of the US credibility, but it's just wildly unresponsible to do such thing, to let US debt default. Because what else can you do, right? You are the primary currency in the world. If you don't want it to default, or you just want to pay your debt as a ceremonial thing, what can US literally do is you just keep printing money and use the money you printed to pay back your debt. It's that simple. There's nothing else to do. This is why when I look at all these articles about default in progress, or like our clickbaity thumbnails, like, oh my god, the US is gonna go default, blah 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 blah. It's literally clickbait, because the probability of that happening is literally 0.1%. It's like the Armageddon judgment day, second coming, Jesus come down, Jesus go back to heaven again, Satan on earth, all of the evils are coming together. We open up the Pandora box and kaboom, US default instead. So probably not gonna happen. So how can we profit from that? It's simple. Buy the dip. Alright, this is it for this video. There's going to be a part 2 to this video. We're going to talk about the bipartisanship and what's the fuzz about this, debt ceiling is really becoming a hot topic. Why would Republicans don't want to agree with it, and why would Democrats, think this is such a great idea? And there are some people sitting in the middle, and J Money is being a resting bitch face, but very cute, because I really love J Money, and the Madam Treasury Secretary is having another sort of like a perspective on why Congress should increase the debt ceiling. And by the end of that video, I'm going to talk about how the bond yields and bond ETFs can be one of the things you can play around with when we're still in this quote-unquote debt ceiling crisis. Or there are other things you can buy into in terms of like a stock to increase your portfolio, or some foreign currency you can also bet against the US dollar. Just say, just in case this congressional hearing and bipartisan vote is not going to happen, it's going to extend to October 18th. I mean, worst thing is going to happen is US, the Fed's just going to print the shitloads of money and pay back these debt, and credibility goes to shit. But in terms of average investor, or an active investor, there are a lot of things that you can do to mitigate your market risk. And there are a lot of things you can do to profit off this crisis, or quote-unquote crisis. All right, if you haven't subbed this channel, you will get 10 years of good luck if you sub. And you haven't like that video. See you guys on the upside.